Yes, ready. So we're going online as well. So, Shabbat Shalom. So, welcome to Pastor Keith, how do you pronounce Gateskill, who will talk to you later about something he's running in Kingston, which is very important and we need to be made aware. Welcome to Leonid as well. So Leonid has kindly agreed to teach some modern Hebrew to KLS, and I invited him to come this morning. So you can actually discuss with him later how you want to do this and, etc. So thank you for joining us today. And welcome to you who are online. So I'm going to look at my phone. So it's not because I'm rude, it's because I want to see who is there. So I'm going to welcome you properly in a moment. We are going to start our service on page 117. 117. Please stand. Ma tovu alecha Yaakov, alecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu alecha Yaakov, alecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Vahani berov chasdecha avo veitecha eshtachavei elech al kodshecha beiratecha ma tovu alecha Yaakov, alecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu alecha Yaakov, alecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Vahani tefilati lecha Adonai et chatzon Elohim berov chasdecha aneni be'emet ishecha ma tovu alecha Yaakov, alecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu alecha Yaakov, alecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Israel. May our prayers be acceptable to you, eternal God, in your great kindness. Answer us with your saving truth. Amen. Please be seated. We thank you, O God, for this new day, for morning sun and evening star, for flowering of tree and flowing of tide, for life-giving rains and cooling breezes, for the changing seasons, for the cycle of growth and decay, of life and death. We awake and behold a new day. O God, renew us unto life. Teach us to recognize your presence in creation. Grateful for your gifts, may we dedicate all our powers to your service. We turn to page 118. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa li kol tzorki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam הנותן ליעף כוח. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, המעביר שינה מעיני ותנומה מעפעפיי. We praise you, eternal God, sovereign of the universe, for the blessing of sleep and the privilege of waking to a new life. We turn now to page 135. 135. And I will ask you to stand, please. ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, האל המלך הגדול והקדוש, בשמיים ובארץ. כי לך נאי אדוני אלוהינו, ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, שירו שבחה, הלל וזמחה, ברכות והודעות מעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בשירי זמרה. לי 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 יא לי 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 יא לי 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 יא לי 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 יא לי 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 Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Barechu et Adonai, Amevorah. Baruch Adonai, Amevorach, Amevorach, Leolam Vaed. Amevorach, Amevorach, Leolam Vaed. Please be seated. We're on page 136. Please join me. We praise you, Eternal One, our God, sovereign of the universe, maker of light and creator of darkness, author of peace and creator of all things. In your mercy you give light to the earth and all who live on it, and in your goodness you renew creation continually day by day. How manifold are your works, O God! With wisdom have you made them all. The world is full of your creations. Your handiwork proclaims your praise. The radiant stars bear witness to your glory. We praise you, O God, creator of light. And we continue together. Great is your love for us, eternal God, and abundant your compassion. Our ancestors trusted in you, and you taught them the laws of life. So be gracious to us and teach us. Incline our hearts to hear your words, to know and understand, to learn and teach, and with love to uphold the truth of your Torah. Enlighten us with your teaching, make us faithful to your commandments, and wholehearted in the love and awe of your name. For in love you summon us to serve you and proclaim your unity. We praise you, O God. In your love you have called your people Israel to serve you. And we stand for the Shema. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Leolam Vaed. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך. ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ובשורבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Amen. Please be seated. Good and beautiful and true, sound, established and enduring are these words now and forever. True it is, eternal one, that you are sovereign God and Redeemer, as you were the God and Redeemer of our ancestors. You are our Maker, the rock of salvation. We have known you always as our helper and our liberator. There is no God but you. Truly you are first and you are last. We have no Redeemer but you. You redeemed us from Egypt and freed us from the house of bondage. Then, with great joy, Moses, Miriam, and all Israel together sang to you this song. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדע בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלי. A new song, the redeemed sang to your name at the shore of the sea. With one accord they gave thanks and proclaimed your sovereignty. Adonai yimlo leolam vaed, Tzur Yisrael, kuma bezrat Yisrael, goaleinu Adonai tzevahot shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael, Gal Yisrael, Israel. You have now the Magen Avot v'Imaot in lieu of the Amidah, so please stand and we're going to use this sheet of paper. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzrak ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'Anora, El Elyon, Koneh Shamayim va'aretz, Magen Avot ve'imaot bidvaro, Mechaye Hakol b'ma'amaro, Ha'el Hakadosh en kamohu, המניח לעמו ביום שבת קודשו, קיווה מחצה להניח להם, לפניו נעבוד ביראה ופחד, ונודה לשמו בכל יום תמיד. מעון הברכות אל ההודעות, אדון השלום מקדש השבת, ומברך שביעי, ומניח בקדושה לעם בדושני עונג, זכר למעשה וראשית. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, and God of those who came before us, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, God of Sarah, God of Rebekah, God of Rachel, and God of Leah. Great, mighty, and revered God, God transcendent, maker of heaven and earth. With a word you shielded our ancestors. With a phrase you give all things life. Sacred God beyond compare, who took joy in providing rest for your people on your holy Shabbat day. We will serve you reverently, acknowledging on each and every day forever just who you are. The one to whom blessing goes, the one to whom thanksgiving is due. source of peace, who records the time of creation by sanctifying Shabbat, blessing the seventh day, and in holiness granting rest to a people overflowing with joy. We take a few moments of private prayer meditation now. Shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol bnei Adam, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, yaseh shalom. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol bnei Adam. Shabbat Shalom. So now it's time for the Torah reading. So on this Shabbat, we read a passage from the book of Numbers, chapter 14, verses 1 to 10, and it's Parashat Shelach Lecha. So it's interesting because I think the book of Numbers is one of my favorite, to be honest with you, because if you want to understand how a Jewish community works, you have to look into this book. You have to understand all the mourning, the complaining, the challenging to Moses' authority all the time. And in this passage, there is, so just to give you a bit of context, Moses sent the scouts to look into the land to see if it's a good place to settle. And oh, lo and behold, there were already people there. And not only there were people there, but they were big and very strong, and the cities had walls. And, we never be able to conquer this land. And of course, they came back and they complained, it's terrible, they're so strong, powerful, they have a strong wall, we will never be able to settle in this land. And it's a Middle East. So you have to understand, the Middle East, emotions are outpoured much more than there could be, for example, in England. I can't imagine, the book of Numbers in English context. It's probably, 2 chapters, oh well. But no, we're in the Middle East, so it has to be, loads of emotion. So this is what the text says. Oh gosh, I think Vatissa, okay. So the whole community broke into loud cries, and the people wept that night. It makes me really laugh, sorry, because you know how much I love this generation. They really had a hard time. They were the one who followed Moses. He said, I've been sent by God to deliver you. And they said, okay, let's go. And they had to flee their homes. They went through a very traumatic period over Pesach. They had to leave their homes. They had to cross the sea. And they can never please God. It's always, they had a really hard time. And on the top of that, they were not allowed to enter the Holy Land. So really, I think it's the Jewish tradition is very harsh on them. But, we can be maybe more compassionate to them. So they wept, of course. All the Israelites railed against Moses and Aaron. If only we had died in the land of Egypt. The whole community shouted at them, oh, if only we might die in the wilderness. So that reminded me of, do you know Sindhu V? She's an Indian actress, and she does stand-up comedy. And she did once a show about the Indian way of raising children, which is quite similar to the Jewish way of raising children. And she said, when you're Indian mother, you say to your children very early on that if they disobey, they are involved in your own death. So it's kind of, do you want me to die? And I think it's a kind of very interesting thing. So, if only we had died in the wilderness, why is the Eternal taking us to that land to fall by the sword? Our wives and children will be carried off. It would be better for us to go back to Egypt. You can feel the despair here. And they said one to another, let's head back for Egypt. Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembled congregation of the people of Israel, and Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, of those who had scouted the land, rent their clothes, which is a sign of grief, And today, when you go to a traditional funeral, you cut a bit of a cloth. If we turn now, they exhorted the whole Israelite community and saying, the land that we traversed and scouted is an exceedingly good land. If the Eternal is pleased with us, God will bring us into that land, a land that flows with milk and honey, yes, and give it to us. Only you must not rebel against the Eternal. Have no fear then of the people of the country, for they are our prey, which is kind of, okay. Their protection has departed from them, but the Eternal is with us. Have no fear of them. And the whole community threatened to pelt them with stones. The presence of the Eternal appeared in the tent of meeting to all the Israelites. And when it continues, God complains to Moses, and how long will these people spurn me? I will strike them with pestilence. And Moses, no, don't do that, because they will ask, why did this God bring them out of Egypt if it's to describe them? And God eventually listened to Moses. Again, very Middle Eastern, a bit dramatic way of dealing with relationship, but at least everything is out in the open. So Rebecca came back from Israel, and we talked about this earlier. How Israelis and British deal very differently with conflict. Right? It's a kind of it's a very interesting way how culture actually is different from one country to the other. So, can I have 2 ark openers? And Naomi, yes, Naomi, and maybe Alexander, if you can open the ark. Can I ask Brian to take the scroll out of the ark? And can I ask Dominic maybe to be the gabbai for Alexander, and Naomi to explain exactly how to undress the scroll? Because it's also a learning moment. And I think because I'm so happy to see you all here, we'll do a community aliyah today. I think it's nice to have all of you there. Okay. We are on page 481. 481.
Ron's going to
אין כמוך באלוהים אדוני ואין כמעשיך מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. Please stand. אדוני מלך אדוני מלך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד אדוני עוז יבוא ייתן אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. אחד אלוהינו, גדול אדוננו, קדוש שמו. גדלו לאדוני איתי ונרוממה שמו יחדיו. לך אדוני הגדולה והגבורה והתפארת והנצח והעוד לפני ככל בשמיים ובארץ ככל בשמיים ובארץ. לך אדוני הממלכה והמתנשא לכל ראש. על שלושה דברים על שלושה דברים על שלושה דברים העולם עומד. על שלושה דברים על שלושה דברים העולם עומד. Brilliant. Thank you. Please be seated. Yes. It's kind of weird starting. Yeah. So, no, actually, you have to stand again, because we're going to say the blessing together. ברכו את אדוני המבורר, ברוך אדוני המבורר לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה. Amen. Yeah, you may sit now. Start in the middle here. It's really complicated. Oh gosh, I found it yesterday when I prepared the scroll. So that's a bit further, yes. Where are you? Oh dear. Apologies. Yeah, it's fine. No? אמן. ותישא כל העדה ויתנו את קולם ויבכו העם בלילה ההוא וילנו אל משה ואל אהרון כל בני ישראל
וימחו עליכם כל העדה, לו מתנו בארץ מצרים, במדבר הזה לו מתנו, ולמה אדוני מביא אותנו אל הארץ הזאת, לנפול בחרב, ונשינו וטפנו יהיו לבז, הלא טוב לנו שוב מצרימה. ויאמרו איש אל אחיו, ניתנה ראש ונשובה מצרימה. ויפול משה ואהרון על פניהם לפני כל קהל הדעת בני ישראל, ויושיע בן נון, ולחלב בן יפונה מן האתרים את הארץ, קרעו בגדיהם, ויאמרו אל כל עדת בני ישראל לאמור, הארץ אשר עברנו בה לתור אותם, טובת הארץ מאוד מאוד. אם חפץ בנו אדוני והביא אותנו אל הארץ הזאת, ונתנה לנו ארץ אשר היא זבת חלב ודבש. אדוני אל תמרדו, ואתם אל תראו את עם הארץ, כי לחמנו הם, שר צילם מעליהם, ואדוני איתנו, אל תיראום. ויאמרו כל העדה, לרגום אותם באבנים, וכבוד אדוני ניחא באוהל מועד אל כל בני ישראל. Please stand. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה. אמן. Okay. So Brian's going to do the Agba'ah. וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל, על פי אדוני ביד משה. Yeah, put it back. I think it's going to be easier for you. Yeah, brilliant. Wow. Working out on Shabbat, huh? Thank you. So, yeah. Can I ask Alexander and Naomi to come back? I think we need to. It's becoming looser and looser. So. Can you go and sit there? Yeah. You may sit. doing half the job for me.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is, if we don't bind tight, then it can be damaged, so we have to be very careful with that. So we're turning now to page 484. May I ask you to stand, please? Eternal God, whose dominion embraces the universe, we ask your blessing for our sovereign King Charles and all the royal family, for those who govern our country and all who influence the quality of its national life. Make them conscious of our responsibility and teach them to exercise it in accordance with your will. May we all help to fashion in this country a society that excels in freedom and justice, tolerance and compassion, so that it may be a force for righteousness and peace in the life of humanity. Eternal God, as you blessed our ancestors in generations past, bless now this congregation, its leaders and its members, and all who enter this synagogue to meet, to study and to pray. Comfort the sorrowing hearts among us, and heal those in anxiety or pain. May we all find here community and friendship, renewal of purpose and hope, a deeper understanding of our heritage, and a sense of your abiding presence. Bless all congregations of the House of Israel throughout the world. Let those who live under oppressive rule soon be freed, and may we all unite to witness to your truth and do your will. Eternal God, our rock and redeemer, grant blessing to the state of Israel, created to fulfill an age-old dream and to be a haven for the oppressed. Inspire its leaders and citizens with faithfulness to the aims of its founders, to develop the land for the benefit of all its inhabitants, and to implement the prophetic ideals of liberty and justice. May they live in harmony with one another and in peace with their neighbors, and cause to come true once more the ancient vision that out of Zion shall go forth Torah and the word of God from Jerusalem. יהללו את שם אדוני כי נשגב שמו לבדו. הודו על ארץ ושמיים וירם קרן לעמו תהילה לכל חסידיו לבני ישראל עם קרובו. הללויה hallelujah. We're on page 489 now. Can you open the app? Behold, a good doctrine has been given you. Do not forsake it. It is a tree of life to those who hold it fast, and all who cling to it find happiness. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are grace. Ashivenu Adonai Enecha Venashuva Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem Chadesh Yameinu Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. Please be seated. Bless you. So, it is my pleasure to invite Pastor Keith Gateskill to come here to talk to us. So we had a very nice coffee chat a few weeks ago, and you talked to me about your project, and also you desire to come and share it with KLS. So please, over to you. Can you come here? Yes. Yeah, stand here. I'm going to sit now. I'll leave it to you. It's clergy, so you know what to do.
All right. Just want to say it's a real privilege to be here. I couldn't sing along with you, but Dominique was giving me guidance, and so leading me on the right page. And even though I couldn't sing, I just loved the words. And just being able to read the words and hearing you sing along was a very wonderful moment, very spiritual time. So thank you so much for having me. And Rabbi René, I just want to say a massive thank you to you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I understand these moments are sacred and special moments. And to give me this opportunity, I really do appreciate. Just to give you a bit of background about myself, my name is Keith Gateskill. I'm a pastor at a local church in Kingston called Kingsgate Church. My wife, Michelle, I wanted her to come with me today, but she couldn't. But I've got 2 daughters, and I've got a son. My middle daughter's just finishing at Leeds, and my son is doing GCSEs. I don't know if anyone else here has got a GCSE family at the moment, but it's all work. Just a privilege to be here. But apart from being a pastor, I wear another hat, and that is I work for something called the Kingston Women's Hub. And I'm not sure if any of you would know about it, but the Kingston Women's Hub is a partnership of non-profit and charity organizations working together with the council to provide a holistic support for women who are going through domestic abuse or domestic violence or have experienced domestic abuse and domestic violence. And one of the big things that we're really passionate about is how do we get survivors' voices heard? And survivors' voices heard in the setting of policy, in legislation, and even in practice. So one of the things we've been working at is speaking to the police and helping to train the police in areas of domestic violence and getting survivors' voices heard into that space. But my purpose for today is really to do 2 things. To let you know a little bit about what we're doing, and then to obviously give you some ideas of how you can help and participate in this, in tackling what we call VAWG. Now, I don't know how many of you have heard the acronym VAWG or know what it means, VAWG, and it stands for Violence Against Women and Girls. And it's something, as you would not be surprised, it's a major problem. They say, I think the United Nations put something out which said 1 in 3 women across the world will experience some form of violence in their life, violence or sexual harassment. And another stat that came out a couple of years ago is on average 137 women a day are killed somewhere in the world by a member of their family or their partner. And those statistics are going to be very, very underreported. And they don't take into account all the other women who live in abusive situations, unheard, unseen, or women and young girls who are attacked by predators and predatory strangers, etc., etc. So this is a significant problem. And although we live in a wonderful borough, which is by and large very safe, we do have issues here in this area of VAWG in Kingston. There was a study done recently with the schools, and it was quite an extensive study here with the young girl students between the ages of about 11 and 18. And over 50% of girls at that age had been sexually harassed in school. And then nearly 50% of them had been encouraged or felt pressured into sending intimate photos of themselves online to other people. So it's not just happening behind closed doors, but it's happening to the girls and the kids in our lives in the schools. And then also just during COVID and lockdown, there was a significant increase in the number of people, number of women who were applying or seeking help in the area of domestic violence and support and help. And what adds to this problem is it's a very silent and hidden problem. You know, much abuse occurs behind closed doors and in homes. It doesn't necessarily all carry physical scars, because domestic abuse and domestic violence, for example, can include physical, sexual, financial, emotional, technological. The underlying thing about abuse is it's about control. And by the very nature, because it's about control, the abusers in that instance want to hide and disguise what is taking place in people's lives. Consequently, most people don't know how prevalent it is. And I've been a pastor for many years, And since we've started doing the Kingston Women's Hub based at our church, I've just been amazed, negatively amazed, at how many people we are seeing coming through. And the people you just never would expect to see who are seeking help and advice. In addition to this, most victims keep silent because they don't believe they're going to be heard, or they're embarrassed, or they feel maybe what they've gone through is their own fault. I mean, just an alarming statistic. I know I'm giving lots of statistics. Before I was a pastor, I was an accountant. And so we used to love statistics. I used to be a chartered accountant, and we'd love statistics. But here's a shocking statistic that at the year ended March 2022, there were over 70,000 rapes that were reported. And there were in the same time, only 2,200 convictions. So we see this massive gap between the experiences of women and girls and actually how that is flowing through into the courts. So one of the biggest things we want to do in the borough is we want to encourage women and girls to have a voice so that they can express and not be silent about what they're experiencing. So last year we did something called the Pearl Project, where we got 10 survivors of domestic abuse and domestic violence, and not just domestic abuse and violence. One of the ladies had been trafficked, and we got them to tell their story. And we took beautiful portraits of them. We taught them we gave them creative writing courses. And in all of this, what we were saying to everyone is we want to give you a voice. And we want the other women and girls in our community who are going through the same thing to know that in this borough, they will be heard. In this borough, they'll be taken seriously. So that's one of the things. But another problem is that in some ways, this violence and this the violence against women and girls and sexual harassment is so normalized. I think there's many. I've got 2 daughters, and when I explained, I said, I heard this kind of stuff was happening, and they said, yeah, of course it happens. You know, when I get on the bus, this happens. I've been followed, etc., etc. And I think what happens is, as a society, we've normalized and we've accepted, and we've built lives around and accommodating a behavior which should just not be acceptable. And one of the things we're wanting to look at as well is specifically how do we reach out to men and to boys in particular and say, how do we train them? How do we get to them before they're influenced by this wealth of stuff that is impacting their lives and forming their ideas of sex and sexuality and et cetera, et cetera. So one of my fellow pastors, Pastor Paul, he is doing a series of training. He's put together a training course and going into schools and teaching young boys and getting to them and saying, you don't have to be the abuser, the harasser of the future. You can do things differently and be different in that space. So we've started rolling that out into schools, and we want to do that a little bit more. But I want to also just mention that here in this borough, we are engaging with all parts of our community. So we try to do a coordinated response in tackling this area of violence against women and girls. So we're looking at the nighttime economy, we're looking at schools, we're trying to help the police. And the particular area that I'm involved in is working with faith communities, looking at that intersection, if you like, between faith communities and VOG. And what I'm trying to do is raise awareness, as well as also educating and equipping faith communities to deal with this. And this is vital for many reasons. And one of the reasons is that as faith communities, we often are, or should be, the place where people who are most desperate come to. The place where they come to when they're in the most need. This is particularly if you are a community which is reaching out, a faith community which is reaching out to engage with the world around you. That's one of the things we really are doing a lot of at Kingsgate. So what I'm just aware that many of us, our leaders, etc., we want to equip them so that when a woman comes into our area and they can spot the signs, they can ask the right questions, they can respond in the right way to make the women and girls feel comfortable to be able to engage. The second thing, though, is for us, faith is an important thing. It's a massive part of our lives and a beautiful thing. But faith can also be used to justify abuse. I had a situation, as a friend of ours, she was married to a pastor who abused her terribly for about 8-9 years. And she stayed silent because of an incorrect and manipulated interpretation of the sacred texts that we have. And our faith can at times, when it's used badly, be used to dissuade women and girls from seeking help. And in this instance, religion becomes a scenario being used to control the abused person. The third thing about this is I also think sometimes faith communities are nervous about engaging with this topic, because somehow, if this happens in our communities, we failed. But the reality is we are faith communities, and therefore we deal with people. We deal with broken people. It's inevitable that things like this can take place. What is negligent is if we don't do anything about it, or we don't know what to do about it. So it's both about making faith communities safer and about helping faith communities to be a constructive and powerful voice regarding violence against women and girls. So what are we doing? Well, one of the things we're doing is we're raising awareness. So coming to speak to you today is one of the ways we wanted to get into different faith communities and talk about this and just raise the awareness, just broadly speaking, particularly with men. You know, it's one of the things, and I've been working with faith communities. I've spoken to some faith communities, and they say, yes, we can give you an opportunity to talk to some of the ladies. But the reality is that most faith communities are led by men. And unless we are dealing with the men on this topic, we are not really dealing with this issue at all. The second thing is that we're trying to build relationships and build friendships. So I'm also part of the Kingston Interfaith Forum, with Rabbi René as the chairman of that, trying to engage cross-culturally and cross-faith communities to build a kind of a cohesive unit that we work at this together. I have a desire to build a social media presence, but I am pretty shocking at social media. So anybody who wants to jump in and help me in that space, I'll give you my number afterwards. But I'd love to be able to do that. And the other thing you see here is I've got this big white ribbon. Now, I'm not sure if any of you know about the white ribbon of ambassadorship, but the white ribbon is the UK's leading charity engaging men and boys to end violence against women and girls. When we wear this white ribbon, it is a way of saying, raising awareness, starting conversations, and also it's part of making a promise that we say we're just not going to sit idly by if we see abuse, or sexual harassment, or behavior which we believe is inappropriate. So one of the things I'm doing in our church is I'm trying to encourage the men in our church to wear this ribbon, to become white ribbon ambassadors. I spoke to one church, and the leader said, our guys don't need to lead this. We don't want to virtue signal that we care about women. And I'm saying, well, I don't wear that for that reason. I wear this ribbon so that when the women come into our church who may be abused, they know this is a safe space for them. And that if an abuser or someone of that nature comes into our community, they know that we take this seriously. So that is one way for the men in our communities to make a stand. I'm encouraging my son, who is now turning 16 in a week, to become a white ribbon ambassador as well, to demonstrate something different. It's not just about raising awareness, though, it's about equipping. And what we're doing is we're going to be putting together a comprehensive list of training that is available to faith communities, some of which will be very faith-specific, and that's sometimes harder to get to. There is some great stuff from the Jewish community, actually, which deals with this and is available, which I'm sure you guys know of. But apart from the very faith-specific examples, we want to do stuff like domestic abuse training. What do you do if a woman comes to you and says, I'm being abused? What are your legal responsibilities? What are the legal implications of what you need to do? Bystander training. This has been popular. So, for example, if I see something taking place, I don't want to get involved because I'm going to get stabbed. That's what most people feel. And to be honest with you, rightly so in some ways. But we've provided training to help people say, how do you diffuse a situation in public? It sounds really silly, but opening a packet of crisps in between two people while they're arguing doesn't sound like much, but little techniques of how you can diffuse a situation. We've been doing training with that. The goal being, if we see a woman who's being abused on a train or being harassed, how do we step in and diffuse that situation? Technological abuse and training. and safeguarding training are also some of the things that we're making available. The other thing what we wanted to do is we wanted to put a code of best practice together for the Kingston faith communities. Not complex, not detailed, but certain things which all the faith communities can feel comfortable to ascribe to say, you know what, if any woman in this community sees this synagogue, this church, this mosque have subscribed to this code of best practice, they know they can feel safe in that space. And the other thing to mention, just with regard to equipping, just one of the things that you might not be aware of, it's called the place I work is the Kingston Women's Hub. So on a Monday and a Tuesday, our church building is practically used by the women's, the various charities working for the Kingston Women's Hub. So if you know of any woman who is struggling with abuse or in a difficult situation, if you point them to the Kingston Women's Hub, they will find legal help. They will find practical help. They will find financial help. They will. There's a suite of things that we put together to help women in that situation to make those next steps, hopefully in some way to freedom in a way. The next thing is we want to do awareness. We want to do equipping, and we want to make a public statement. So one of the things we're doing in November, there is 16 days of activism, and we want to do something in Kingston which is big, which is going to get people's attention. A couple of years ago, they put white ribbons on outside the city, the city hall, I don't know what you call it. Council. There you go. They put it outside the council hall, and a ribbon for every single woman who'd been killed by a family member during the year. I think there was 105 or something on that memorial. But we want to do something bigger this year for 16 days to really raise awareness of this. And I will be speaking to Rabbi René so that he will know and be able to share with the different communities of how they can get involved. And then the last thing we want to do is we want to engage with the council about how do they respond to the faith element of abuse. Say, for example, a woman is in a very dangerous situation and she comes from a devout Christian background. She's going to respond in a particular way. She's going to not respond because of certain things. How does the council engage with the faith community to help them with that situation? Almost, if you like, a faith consultant for them in that regard. So those are 4 main areas that we are working in. But someone said to me the other day, somebody in the at Kingston University, and I'm coming into land soon. I'm doing well, Rabbi René. Initially, I said it would be 45 minutes, so you're getting the abridged version. You're lucky. You've got the whole afternoon still. Because we're working with Kingston University to do something creative for November. We want to do something really creative. And one of the people said to me, Keith, what are you actually wanting to achieve with all of this, with the Vorg stuff? And I said, I want to change attitudes. I don't know what it was like for you, but where I grew up, in a land far, far away, about 30 years ago, you would go to the pub and you'd have 3 beers, 4 beers, get in your car and drive, and your friends would laugh. But now you don't do that. There is a cultural, we don't drink and drive anymore. It's become an uncomfortable thing to do. Imagine if we could do that in our borough. We say, no, we don't talk about women like that. We don't say those kinds of things. We don't do that to women who are walking along the street on their own. That's not what we do here. How do we change the attitude? I spoke to another group in another part of the country who are doing something similar, and I said, what are you doing with regards to faith communities and violence against women and girls? And they said, well, we've got a number of Sikh temples and mosques which we are using to train women in self-defense. And I thought, well, that's nice, but if our women have to learn to fight, to walk down our streets, that's a problem. We don't want to just deal with the symptoms. We want to deal with the cultural causes, and that's going to take a long time. This is not, Keith's done this for 6 months and it's all fine. This is a long journey we have to make. But I think it's something that's worth doing. And one of you might be saying, why have we got a man standing up here talking about violence against women and girls? Well, what we usually do, there's a lady with me called Natalie who works with the council. And she usually is I don't want to say my sidekick, I'm sometimes her sidekick as well. But what we try to demonstrate with that is actually it's men and women working together for this. Because this is a human problem. And that needs men and women to be working together. But also, I like Natalie to be here with me as well because she works for the council. And here we've got faith and council working together into this space. And we have to do this working together. And as a result of that, that's why I really, really appreciate the warmth, René, that you've engaged with us and that you've opened up this really special moment for me to speak to you. Because we do need to do this together and collaborate in this task. So I want to say thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. And I will be here for a little bit longer. And if you have any questions or want to know anything more, please just let me know. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think we're going to conclude our service now, and we will be able to talk to Pastor Keith later at the Kiddush if you want to ask questions. What I can say is we have a very strong safeguarding policy here at KLS. I can't remember when, there's been an ongoing reflection, and there was a big push a couple of years ago to have something really strong and protective and powerful, because it's our duty as a community to protect the vulnerable among us. And for some of you know that someone very dear to me is actually struggling with abuse like this, and now in the middle of a legal challenge. And I have to say that the police they need training. They really need training. So I know. I wasn't abused, but someone very dear to me, and it can destroy a life. It takes years to rebuild your life. So I had to convince myself that violence is not the answer, that there's a legal system, but it was difficult. Right, okay, so where's my phone? Here. I'm going to check the list of yahrzeit for this Shabbat. In the meantime, if you have any name you would like to remember before we say the Kaddish together. So on this Shabbat we remember Margaret Brose, the grandmother of Louisa Mickelson. Remember Sarah Carras de Wolf, the grandmother of Nora Zimmerman. And remember Richard Halfin, the husband of Myra and father of Simon. Is there any other name you would like to remember? Yes, please.
Kate Honeywell, who's the mother of a very good friend of mine who died on Monday.
Kate Honeywell, okay. And of course today we're also thinking of victims of abuse against girls and women. And we say the Kaddish together on page 525. 524. Please stand. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברר וישתבר ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה על שמי נקודשה בריחו. לאלה מן כל ביחתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום, עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל בני אדם ואמרו אמן. Okay, please be seated. One last song. Let's do En Keloheinu. We don't do this very often. Now, of course, I don't know if I have
the proper. Oh, sorry, I forgot. A few announcements. Of course, tomorrow, I know that we have a big competition, but tomorrow is the AGM at 11. It's again, I really insist on that. I'm a bit heavy these past few weeks, but I think it's very important to come here to talk about the future of KLS, to support your council. We've been working very hard, and also to listen to Rabbi Charlie Baginski, who will come tomorrow to talk about this new movement that is in the air, combining Reform and Liberal Judaism into one progressive movement. So she will come and talk about this as well, so if you have any questions. And of course there will be food, so so you won't come for nothing, and you will feed your stomach as well. Later on, so you can talk to Pastor Keith, but also Leonid. I know Leonid, as I said, kindly agreed to offer some modern Hebrew class for members, so you can talk to him, how you want to organize it. I know that there's, I don't know if he's online, but there's another person who said he was interested in joining your class as well. So I'll leave it to you. You talk to Leonid, who he is now. Rebecca?
Yeah, also tomorrow, if you're between 17 and 55, you'll have the opportunity to give a swab. Hopefully you saw in the bulletin yesterday that there's a local guy who's suffering from a very rare form of cancer and needs a stem cell transplant. But it's very unusual to actually have the right match or something. And because the guy is Jewish, it's likely, but not inevitable, that a matching donor would also be Jewish. So we have got a number of swabs to take tomorrow and then pass them on to the family. But it's only if you're between 17 and 55 and in good health. So please come along to the AGM anyway for the reasons that Rabbi René said. But if you are falling within that age bracket, you can give a swab as well. And we might say, oh,
I'm afraid I'm too old now. Gosh, we get old very quickly. Okay, page 5 to 8. En Keloheinu, en Kadonenu, en Kemalkeinu, en Kemoshienu, Micheloheinu, Michadonenu, Michemalkeinu, Michemoshienu. Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu. Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonai. You don't know the melody, huh? It's not something. Sorry, it comes from it's a Sephardi one. Da, da, da. Sorry, it comes from my time in France. So, which one do you know? Da 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 da. Baruch Hoshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu. So there's a conflict, Sephardi, Ashkenazi. Please stand. מי ששיכן את שמו בבית הזה, הוא ישכים ביניכם אהבה ואחווה ושלום ורעות. May the one whose presence dwells in this house, in your homes, cause love and harmony, peace and friendship to dwell among you. And let us say, Amen. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. And Shabbat Shalom to you online as well. Thank you for joining us.